SLT Fibre and experience the power of fibre technology. Sri Lanka's only super fast internet connection. SLT Fibre. Call 1212 now.
Tonight, make it public. Gamantila urges the declassification of PCOI report on corruption, insisting that New Democratic Front presidential candidate is implicated. Opportune moment. WHO presses for road safety to be made a political priority in the run-up to the election.
Can we make road safety a political priority? And for Sri Lanka, it is opportune.
Quartet complete. 3 Southern Hemispheric teams in the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup. All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Sunday, the 20th of October 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti marks cream.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Well, very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katrina Chang. Now on your top story tonight, SLPP's presidential hopeful Gotabaya Rajapaksa pledges to bring about stability in Sri Lanka by bringing the underworld and the drug traffickers under control. Speaking at a series of election propaganda rallies yesterday, he also pledged to introduce reforms to the education sector along with the national policy.
An election rally organised by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was worked off in Siduwa last evening under the auspices of SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
We can increase the capacity of Kalani University by introducing an IT and engineering faculty in order to provide an opportunity for our youth to study in the field of technology. As this is a district with an airport, we also have plans to assist the tourism sector by converting this into a $10 billion industry.
Another public rally was held at the Mirigama Municipal Council grounds thereafter.
How did these attacks unfold? It was the UNP ministers who are responsible in the planning and massacre that took place in our hotels and churches. 30 months before these attacks happened, I informed Parliament that there were 32 extremists who trained with the IS waiting to launch attacks and that we should stop this. What did the Prime Minister who controlled the police do? He shielded those leaders who were facilitating the ISIS extremists and gave their ministerial positions back. Our future generation is stranded because of the education system. We will introduce short-term and long-term educational reforms. We will also introduce a national policy for education.
SLPP's presidential candidate also attended a rally organised in Veligama last evening.
We dispatched special teams and trained officials to look into extremist activities in the country. But after this government, who are clueless about national security, came to power, they did not carry forward the programs we initiated. When we come to power, we will reintroduce these programs. We are the only ones who can do this. In the past, it was us who were able to control the activities of the underworld and drug traffickers. I pledge that we will once again bring this menace under control. We must bring about stability to this country.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa assures that the decision to appoint former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the SLPP presidential candidate went beyond family ties. Speaking at an event held in Angunu Kulapalassa yesterday, or rather today, the opposition leader insisted that various factions, including the clergy, came to a consensus that the former Defence Secretary is the best man for the job.
An election campaign office of the SLFP was declared open in Angunukula Palasa today under the patronage of opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa.
මෑතකදී තිබිච්ච LPTA මැතිවරණයේදී අපි දෙගොල්ලොන්ගේම ඡන්ද ගත්තම
We won the LPT Pradesh Sabha election with a 70% majority after combining votes from both parties. It is not difficult for us to join hands. Former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga is trying to protect the SLFP these days. It is already protected and there is no problem there. But now we hear of acts of sabotage. It was former President Chandrika and Vijay Kumaratunga who first divided the party by forming a new party called Sri Lanka Mahajana Paksha. Following Zahran's bomb attacks, people were afraid to go to Buddhist temples or watch the Asala procession in Kandy. There were bomb attacks planned targeting the procession, but they were arrested in Gampala. Zahran ensured that his plans were executed well with the support of this government. This is why we have chosen a leader who will give prominence to national security and is experienced in this regard. He wasn't chosen because he is my younger brother. We chose him after discussions with trade unions, Buddhist clergy and party leaders.
Meanwhile, Minister Sajid Premadasa assures that he will usher in a people-centric era once he is in the President's office. The presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front expressed these views at an election campaign rally in Nawalpitiya today. The hopeful also attended several other campaign rallies yesterday. An election campaign rally of presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Minister Sajid Premadasa, was held in Hatharali at Dove Kandy yesterday.
Under a government of Sajid Premadasa, privileges given for ministers will be reduced because my ministers should be as hardworking as I am. Sajid Premadasa will be the development machine which provides relief for the public.
Sajid Premadasa,
the presidential hopeful also attended another campaign rally in Vattegama yesterday.
Apart from the Samurdhi program, I will also bring in the Janasavya program to eliminate poverty in the country. Some ask me the question whether these are doable tasks. If they spent millions to maintain a loss-making entity like Sri Lankan Airlines, why is it a problem to allocate money for Janasavya? From now on, all of these money spent on such institutions will be invested for the public benefit.
Presidential hopeful Premadasa was pleased with himself over the sheer number of election propaganda rallies he has planned in the run-up to the November 16 poll, as he attended another rally worked off in Nawalpitiya today.
I am all by myself here. I will fight alone if I have to against nepotism to usher in an era of the small man. I am organising 151 rallies for the upcoming presidential election, which means I can run very well. But then there will be a time when my super engine becomes weak. When the time comes, I will not engage in politics anymore. Instead, I will let the youth take over. But I should assure you that this is the time I am most strong. This is why I am asking you to give me your support. I am sure that your support will secure me the win in the presidential election.
Presidential candidate of the movement National People's Power MP Anurukumara Dissanayake assures that a government under his leadership will draw an end to the issues faced by women expatriates, especially by domestic aids employed in the Middle East. The JVP leader's remarks came at a gathering held in Colombo today.
An awareness seminar on the manifesto launched for women by the movement National People's Power was worked off at the Public Library in Colombo today. Themed Building Women's Power Towards Hope, the seminar was under the auspices of its presidential candidate, parliamentarian Anurukumara Dissanayake.
Sri Lankan woman is faced with many challenges unique to her. It is rare that women expatriates choose to stay in Sri Lanka after working abroad. This is a reality contributed by economic factors. However, there is more to it. You are more aware of the plight of these women expatriates than me. I guarantee you that we will put an end to this.
Parliamentarian Udaya Gamampila wants President Maithripala Sirisena to make the report compiled by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing acts of corruption and fraud at state institutions between 2015 to 2018 to be made public. Addressing a letter to the head of state today, the parliamentarian said that the report reveals misuse of public funds by the presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Minister Sajid Premadasa, urging the report's declassification before people take to the polls on the 16th of November.
In his letter to the President, parliamentarian Uday Gammanpilla states that he had received a copy of the report compiled by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing corruption and frauds occurred at state institutions between 2015 to 2018. The report was handed over to the President on the 27th of September. The parliamentarian says that pages 186 to 203 of Chapter 1 in the final volume of the report mentions that presidential hopeful Minister Sajid Premadasa had misused public funds amounting to 650 million rupees by way of illegal recruitment of 1,117 persons to the Housing Development Authority and extension of service for 30 officers who are above the age of 60 years. The Commission had noted that 95% of the new employees are residents of his electoral district of Hambantota. The Commission therefore recommends that legal action must be taken against the minister under Article 70 of the Bribery Act. Parliamentarian Gammanpilla therefore requests the President to make the report public prior to the presidential election, which will be crucial in people making their decision at the polls.
Commandant of the Special Task Force, Senior DIG MR Latif, insists that Sri Lanka's fight against religious terrorism will be futile if necessary measures in line with UN and other international standards are not taken immediately. Addressing a panel discussion on violent extremism in South Asia, the STF chief highlighted some of the key areas that need immediate government intervention.
There is a need to relook at better intelligence mechanisms and security clearances for various government officials working in very sensitive organizations like the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. At the Ministry of Muslim Affairs in Sri Lanka, we saw a lot of extremist elements in them. The importance of an independent national intelligence agency comprising of civilians and supplemented by legislation. At this juncture, it's more police-oriented. Then we need amendments to regulations relating to UNHCR, the resolutions 1267 and 1373 to expand, to include provisions to request foreign states to designate individuals, entities and groups suspected of being involved in terrorist activities and widen the coverage of freezing orders, especially the freezing of assets. Then we need to promulgate domestic regulations to give effect to the UN Security Council Resolution 2178 of 2014 pertaining to the FTFs, the foreign terrorist fighters. This will address the issues of Sri Lankan nationals traveling to join ISIS or IS fighters returning from conflict zones in the world, prevent Sri Lanka from being used as a transit point for foreign terrorist fighters. Then we need to review counterterrorism legislation through the prism of the new aspects of terrorism, including abuse of social media and including hate speech. Re-engaging the UN Counterterrorism Directorate and EU Counterterrorism Coordinator for capacity building on countering the new phase of terrorism. Although Sri Lanka had experience of nearly 28 to 30 years of ethnic terrorism, religious terrorism is quite new, and we feel and we have experienced that religious terrorism has to be handled in a different perspective. Otherwise, it could be counterproductive. Embarking on redefining Sri Lankan identity, rebuilding national harmony, cross-faith and ethnic harmony, de-escalating racial and ethnic tensions is very essential. Then regular meetings of intelligence and investigative agencies of police, prompt sharing of outcomes of operational value following investigations, joint interrogation cells, implementing the Sri Lankan Integrated Border Management Strategy, or the IBMS, which was proposed in 2018 and of course has been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers in July 2018, has to be immediately implemented.
Traffic-related accidents come at an expense of both property and life, with around 3,000 deaths reported each year. In order to mitigate the situation, country representative of the World Health Organization, Dr. Razia Pense, sees the looming presidential election as an opportune moment in making road safety a political priority. Addressing Sri Lanka's first traffic symposium organized by Sri Lanka Police in collaboration with the World Health Organization yesterday, Dr. Pense raised concerns over the exponential rise of fatal accidents and lifelong disabilities caused by road accidents.
7 to 8 deaths per day, deaths largely in the younger ages or the elderly or the pedestrians. These are all preventable deaths, and that's why it is that much more important. And when we look at the 2017 Global Status Report, which was published in December 2018, it shows that instead of reducing globally, actually the number of deaths due to accidents are on the increase. Looking at the enforcement framework, how do we ensure that these legislatures, these laws and policies that are enacted actually get implemented and enforced? And most importantly, can we make road safety a political priority? And for Sri Lanka, it is opportune. The presidential elections, we are in the midst of it, because it's not just the deaths. Deaths, of course, that is an eventuality, but also the disability. Because when we look at the disabled, that happen because of these road traffic crashes, it could be a lifelong disability. That could be a drain not only on the system, it can impoverish families or push people into poverty. Safer Road Initiative is everyone's business. It's not just the responsibility of the traffic police. The architecture of the roads, it's the responsibility of the urban authority. Road safety has to be upfront thought about while we are planning and designing the roads. Do we have a mechanism to actually record and do the assessment of the health of vehicles, bus drivers and their addiction to ice? Unless we address that, there will always be impaired decision making on part of that driver. And if there is issues in terms of inhuman work hours, especially in the private sector, we know this happens. Then we need a discussion with the private sector.
In every 2 hours and 49 minutes, one person is killed in Sri Lanka, the pearl of the Indian Ocean. Approximately 40,000 accidents are reported annually. This is not the real number. The real number is 500,000. But the police gets only 35,000. What is the reason? There are many insurance policies on the spot. So therefore, the people go along with these insurance companies and it is not reported. But in the Motor Traffic Act, there is a mandatory provision. The Motor Traffic Commissioner and police, we are regulating that particular regulation along with Honorable Attorney General's advice. In the near future, we are going to publish it. Every and each accident, even though it's a minor accident, they have to report that accident to police. It is mandatory.
We're now going to a short commercial break. The second Global Progress Report of the Sustainable Banking Network, facilitated by the International Finance Corporation, notes that Sri Lanka graduated from the preparation stage to the implementation stage, shifting from vision to practice in sustainable finance policy action. Sri Lanka is among 38 emerging market economies to have initiated key banking reforms to drive development and fight climate change. These reforms require banks to assess, manage and report on environmental, social and governance risks in their lending operations and put market incentives in place for banks to lend to green projects. In the report released recently, the International Finance Corporation noted that currently 20 countries are mapped to the implementation stage. Among key reforms and policies adopted in Sri Lanka was the launch of the Sri Lanka Sustainable Banking Initiative in 2015, setting out 11 sustainable banking principles. The launch of a guide for sustainability reporting in financial markets by the Colombo Stock Exchange in 2018, and the release of the roadmap for sustainable finance this year. The report added that for the first time, 2 countries entered the maturing stage. China and Indonesia have become first movers in this stage and have demonstrated pioneering policy actions, including the measurement of bank adoption of new practices and the impacts of green finance. Market analysts expect market activity levels to remain moderate at the Colombo bourse in the coming week. During the past week, the Asia Price Index and the S&P 20 gained 0.49% and 1.35% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 751 billion rupees. We have Achyutan Srirangan from First Capital Holdings with market expectations.
We expect the market activity to pick up the improving business activity with election campaign. The earnings season of the companies is likely to start with positive results, the momentum regaining from the election, to have a positive impact on the market of creating a possible uptrend. We expect the market activity level to remain moderate, while the foreigners may be the continue on the selling side. And however, strong buying interest from the local is likely to be absorbed the quantities.
We will join you with international news right after this commercial break. Stay tuned. UK government says that Britain will leave the European Union on 31st of October despite an unsigned letter that Prime Minister Boris Johnson was forced by his opponents to send to the bloc requesting a Brexit delay. The Brexit maelstrom has spun wildly in the past week between the possibility of an orderly exit on the 31st of October with a deal that Johnson struck on Thursday and a delay after he was forced to ask for an extension yesterday. Johnson's defeat in the British Parliament over the sequencing of the ratification of his deal exposed the Prime Minister to a law passed by his opponents demanding he request a delay until the 31st of January. Johnson insisted he did not want what he cast as a deeply corrosive delay to Brexit beyond the Halloween deadline. One of his most senior ministers, however, said Britain would still leave the bloc on the 31st of October. Wales snatched victory from the jaws of defeat to reach the Rugby World Cup semi-final with a dramatic 20-19 win over France thanks to a late Ross Moriarty try. Despite France leading 19-10 at halftime, Wales displayed a stellar comeback, adding 10 more to their score while preventing the French from scoring a single point. Meanwhile, South Africa ended Japan's dream World Cup run to reach the semi-finals after bruising 26-3 win against the hosts. Accordingly, the first semi-final of the 2019 World Cup will be played between New Zealand and England, while the second will be between Wales and South Africa. The fact 3 teams from the Southern Hemisphere are featured in the semi-final lineup is also a point of note. And on that note, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.